All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for IMA's webinar with SMM on China's outlook on magnesium in quarter 2 of 2025. And this is relevant to the quarterly report that is shared by SMM with IMA every quarter that you can find on the IMA website. And this is an expansion of that conversation. So again, I want to welcome you today. Thank you for joining us. I want to introduce our presenter, Emily Zhang, who is joining us for the first time to present this webinar. And I'll read a little bit about Emily's bio here. You can see it on the screen. Emily is mainly engaged in research projects on non-ferrous metals, magnesium, aluminum, copper, lead, and zinc, and recycling-related industries. Emily has more than 8 years of experience in industry research and consulting and has served in more than 100 consulting projects. She has a solid professional knowledge, especially in corporate mergers and acquisitions, investment, estimation, and more. Emily is the director of the Magnesium Department with SMM. So with that, I will hand it over to Emily to begin today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Let me share my screen first. And could you see that?
Yes, we can.
Yes, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Emily, the director of the Magnesium Consulting Department from Shanghai Metal Market. It's my great honor to be here today. I will share the magnesium market overview information for the first half of the 2025. And today we will share 4 topics: the magnesium supply and demand analysis, the China magnesium export analysis, and China magnesium price analysis. And the fourth one is the China magnesium carbon policy analysis. And here is the China magnesium value chain listed here, and which we use the pigeon process that we are familiar with. Understanding each part of the industrial chain help us to understand the supply and demand of the magnesium. Here we listed the leading companies in each magnesium value chain. So first, on the upstream mining side, the companies primarily use the dolomite as a raw materials for the magnesium smelting, and companies with the dolomite mines generally have an advantage. Main enterprise are including the Baowu Group and Wushan, Qixing, Wenxi, Yangguang, and by that mechanism. If the company don't own their mines, they generally purchase from them or within the 50 kilometers to reduce the shipping cost. And next, in the magnesium smelting process, the China's leading magnesium companies are currently many distributed in the province, such as the Shanxi province, Xinjiang, and Anhui. The very first top tier companies are the state-owned enterprise like the Baowu Magnesium and Wushan Qixing. Those groups are their scales is generally above 100,000 tons. The second tier is the private enterprise with a production capacity of 20,000 to 50,000 tons. And the third tier is related small enterprise with a production capacity of less than 20,000 tons. And next, in the middle stream alloy sectors, the magnesium smelting companies are still the main players in extending the industrial chain downward. And in the downstream applications, with the increasing focus on the lightweighting vehicles, the automakers are increasing adopt the magnesium alloy to replace the traditional steel or the aluminum alloys to achieve their vehicle weight reduction. The key automakers, including the Tesla, the BYD, and the Xiaomi, they use the magnesium alloy. Is also increasing in the consumer electronics, such as those from the Dell and the Apples. After we introduce the magnesium value chain, now let's look at the magnesium supply and demand analysis. First, let's review a global magnesium supply and demand from 2022 to 2024. And we can see that from 2022 to 2024, the global magnesium experienced a shift from a shortage to an oversupply. In 2022, the impact factor such as the pandemic, the microeconomic downturn, and the Russia and Ukraine conflict, the global magnesium supply chain experienced a contraction in recent years, and due to the external shock, but rather than an oversupply. And later, we forecast that the global magnesium demand will remain a tight balance through 2025, with the supply and demand gap likely to remain minimal, like 1,000 to 5,000 tons between 2025 and 2027, respectively. This data suggests that the market has not entered a clear oversupply freeze, but rather than in a very tight balance. Even the risk of the localized shortages. Looking at the price from the current perspective in August, we believe that if both domestic and international supply and demand remain stable, the price of the magnesium is in the second half of the year should not fluctuate as much as in the first half of the year, and also will remain stable. And now let's see the China's magnesium supply and demand balance. By 2025, the supply and demand balance in China for the magnesium product will gradually approach equilibrium. On the one hand, the further development of the domestic magnesium ore source and deepening overseas expansion will help secure the supply. And on the other hand, the rapid growth in the domestic demand will be dynamic matched by the supply. It is worth noticing that currently the magnesium alloy are still only used in a small number of downstream applications, primarily in the new energy vehicle parts. If this application accelerates or expands beyond our expectation, a small supply shortage could be occur later. And for this page, we will introduce new expansion of the global magnesium smelting projects with the acceleration of the downstream application of the magnesium material in recent years. New expansion projects of the primary magnesium will continue to be implemented in the future. And globally, we can see new expansion projects in the country, such as the United States, the Australia, and the Romania. The main methods are different from the pigeon method, which used in China. They use the new methods such as the aluminothermatic method, the electrolytics method. And according to our statistic, China is expected to have more than 15 new magnesium smelting expansion plans. And according to the construction of progress and planning of each enterprise, we have figured out some different possibility of the new expansion. For example, some projects are actively under construction, and while some projects are suspended. And we have calculated that China may have about 850 to 500 tons of the new production capacity expansion plan in the future. Next, we can see, let's focus on the Baowu mechanism. Baowu mechanism plans to expand its magnesium smelting capacity about 250,000 tons. Currently, the construction of 150,000 has been completed, and only about 18,000 tons has entered the production freeze. So it is expected that some new production capacity will be put into production by the end of this year. And we will share the news when we got it at the end of this year. And this page is focused on the emerging or the potential downstream magnesium applications in China in recent years. And so we can see the China's downstream magnesium end-use applications has primarily focused on two key areas. For the first one is lightweighting component primarily in like the industrial robots and the electric bicycles, and the other one is in the energy storage field, such as the magnesium hydrogen storage. And here we can see the diagram of the development cycle, and we can see that for the automobile and the bicycles are already experiencing the rapid growth, and we anticipate a surge in their applications over the next year or very soon. And meanwhile, for the industrial robots are still in their growth stage, and we believe their demands will grow rapidly over the next 1 or 2 to the 3 years. For the energy storage sectors, the magnesium is the metal material with the highest hydrogen storage density among all the solid state hydrogen storage material, and it is widely regarded as the hydrogen storage material with the greatest development potentials. And so the magnesium hydrogen storage is still in the research and development stage, and we will expect they have the strong demand in the next 5 to 10 years. And here I will give an example. Currently, in the new energy vehicle sector, the amount of the magnesium used in a single vehicle has exceeded about 15 kilogram, and it will expected to be about 25 kilogram by the end of the 2030. The demand for the lightweighting has become main drive to force the growth of the magnesium consumption, and also influenced by the government policy for the two-wheeled electronic bicycles. The magnesium alloy will be used in the electronic bicycles. And next, let's look at the magnesium export situation in the first half of 2025. And here we can see in the first half of 2025, China's total magnesium products export were approximately about 500 tons, and it is downstream about 6% from the same period last year. And among all the magnesium products, the magnesium ingots are still the main products, account for about 55%. And well, other products such as the magnesium powder and the magnesium alloy count only for about 23% and 17% respectively. And despite the weak export situation of the China magnesium market, the magnesium industry have been transforming from the export dependence to domestic demand. And overall, we can see that compared with the last year, the China's exports of magnesium ingots decreased by 10% to 25% year on year. And also, the number of the magnesium ingots exports, mainly to Europe, also decreased by about 50% in July. Next, let's look at the magnesium price analysis. And China's magnesium price fluctuated greatly in the first half of the year, from the July to February. The China's domestic magnesium market showed a weak downward trend. In the early of January, the price in the major region ranged from 16,100 to 16,400 yuan per ton. By the end of February, the price have fallen. This downward trend in the magnesium market is primarily driven by the following factors. First, stable production at factors in major production areas ensure the ample spot supply in the market. Secondly, the downstream companies generally took early holidays due to the Spring Festival holidays. And post-holidays, the resumption of the work was a little bit slow, leading to a decreased demand for the magnesium raw material. And in the March, the domestic magnesium market rebounded from a bottom out. In early March, due to continued weak downstream demand, the magnesium price continued to weaken, falling to about 15,000 RMB per ton, the lowest price, which is the lowest price in the first half of the year. And then, due to the high raw material price increase, and then the magnesium price has began to increase a little bit late. In April, the domestic magnesium market experienced wide fluctuated, driven by the dual impact of the supply and demand, unstable raw material price. The magnesium price has fluctuated between the 16,300 RMB and to 17,000 yuan per ton. In May, with the announcement of the dolomite production suspended in Wutai, the factors further strengthened their quotations. Considering the significant impact on the raw material cost and the smelting efficiency, this boomed the downstream purchasing activity and increased the market orders, and pushing the magnesium price to from 17,500 to 17,800 yuan per ton, and reach their highest level in the first half year. And in June, the domestic magnesium retreated from its previously high to 16,000 yuan per ton, and rapidly rise in the magnesium price earlier this year has led to a little bit loss, weakening the market sentiment. So, due to the persistent weak end user demand and the continued lack of sufficient order, the factories are facing the shipping pressures and adopt a price for the volume strategy. This has led to the a little bit intense low price competition in the mechanism market. And next, for the price forecasting. So after we have experienced a rebounded at subsequent decline, the China domestic mechanism market has now entered a relative stable operating phase. In the second half of the year, the mechanism market is expected to continue facing a dual challenge of a little bit over capacity and continued weak end user demand. On the supply side, the manufacturers are generally adopting a production a little bit restriction strategy to maintain the price and controlling the output and keep the inventory at a low stage. Price remain a little bit firm. And on the demand side, the end users are primarily purchasing for the essential needs. Well, the traders are generally adopting a wait and see approach. So furthermore, so the upstream raw materials is providing limited support for the mechanism price. As we can see, the second half of the years, the price is we need to pay very close attention to the downstream demand and the impact of the relative industrial policies. And we believe the mechanism price will grow steadily in the second half of the year. And so overall, the mechanism price are the primary influenced by the macroeconomic environment policies and the market supply and demand. So there is a policy need to mention is about the SAT announcement number 17. And it is a primary adjust the corporation income tax prepayment filing process. It requires the export agents to submit the information on the actual cargo owner and export amount with their quarterly prepay. And this policy aims to combat a little bit operation such as buy to export and strengthen tax compliance oversight. So we think that the mechanism product are not specifically affected as a major commodity. And the export trade progress is like to be a little bit stricter. And then I will introduce the China mechanism carbon policy. And here we can see I listed a lot of policy over there. The Chinese government has introduced a number of policy to promote the development of the magnesium industrial toward a low carbon. And the Chinese government attach great importance to treat of the magnesium slag and require a comprehensive utilization rate of 70%. Currently, the magnesium smelting companies mainly use the magnesium slag in comment after the treatment. And also regarding the Chinese government's control over the greenhouse gas. In the recent year, the Chinese government has mainly focused on the steel, the aluminum smelting, and the power industrial. However, due to the relative small scale of the mechanism industrial, currently there are no management requirements for the carbon emission in the mechanism industrial. And here is an introduction for the China Emission Trade Scheme. While learning from the Europe ETS experience, and currently China government has fixed the mode, which is suited for China enterprise. The system set a cap that the government set an annual carbon emission cap for participating companies based on the industrial benchmark or the history emission data, and breaks this cap down into free allowance for each company. The companies exceeding emission must purchase, they will pay the additional allowance for to offset the emissions. Then we will create an economic intensively that to reward the performance and penalty to the company which is under performance or over performance. And also the government will adjust the mechanism. For example, for the power industrial, currently is the pilot to use this system. Also for the aluminum smelter, some of the aluminum smelter will also use this system in these years. But currently, as I know, the magnesium smelting company are not included in this system. And so this is all for the mechanism part. Currently, I will introduce the Shanghai Metal Markets Mechanism Consulting Service, and we will introduce the industrial level and the enterprise level data if you need, and also including the corporation sustainability consulting, the decarbonization for the supply chain, and the carbon emission research. Also, we will do the market intelligence. And thanks everyone. This is all I want to share the information today. Thank you for hearing.
Thank you, Emily, for the presentation. I just wanted to open it up to any questions. If anybody has
Yes.
any, feel free to send it in the chat or the Q&A feature. Looks like we've got one here already. I can read it out loud to you, Emily, if you're able to respond. This is from Martin Tauber regarding the price chart. What do you mean by Magnesium Association driving up the price in August 2025? Thanks for your great presentation.
2025.
Yes, I think it's in reference to the price chart.
Is that one? So we think it is pretty stable as the for the next half year, the second half year of the 2025, and we think it the downstream in China will be good. So the price is kind of stable.
I think maybe one slide before that one, it looks like
One
Martin
slide
said.
before that.
Something about something drove up the price in August of 2025.
Yes, do you mean there? Currently, the ferrosilicon and the cost is increased. So currently, the magnesium price is a little bit high, and continue to goes higher.
Right, we'll go on to the next question. This is from Alex Millar. Do you have any insight into the number of fixal molding machines installed and being installed and projected?
Is that in this page?
I'm not certain what page it's in reference to. I think just in general. Do you have any insight into the number of fixal molding machines installed and being installed and projected?
The thick molding machine. I have never heard of this machine.
Okay. If we need to follow up for automotive castings, they clarified.
For automotive casting. So, do you mean the downstream demand?
I'm not sure what they're referencing exactly, but maybe I can connect. I'll take
Yes,
Alex's
yes,
question down and maybe we can follow
yes,
up afterwards.
yes. Maybe we can talk detailedly after you. He can ask detailed information question.
Sure. Okay, that sounds good. All right. Any other questions? All right. I think that that is it for right now. Thank you again, Emily and SMM, for joining us for our webinar. That'll be all for today, and stay tuned for the quarter 3 report and webinar to follow in the coming months.
Yes, yes.
And you will get everybody who registered today and all IMA members will get sent an email with a link for the recording for today's session, and you'll get a link to a copy of these slides as well.
Oh, okay, sure.
All right, I think that's all. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.